Welcome back on the AM show. Time now for me to serve you my blunt thoughts. And I've titled it Budget 2025 and SOEs, the salient matters to take stock of. Budget 2025 and SOEs, the salient matters to take stock of. Now, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to unpack the issues, some of the crucial issues when it comes to Budget 2025, and then we'll talk about state-owned enterprises and where they feature in the midst of all of this. So come with me. If you look at the 2024 fiscal performance, overall expenditure as per the budget, this is the figure we were given, 279.2 billion Ghana cedis. That's the figure we're contemplating. But then if you look at the overall budget deficit, what we said we would do versus what we actually did, which is where always the devil is, the detail, sticking to principle, right? Budgeted 42.5 billion Ghana cedis as a deficit. The reality, the actuals, 92.6 billion. If you work out the difference, that's 50.1 billion, which means that shot up by 117%. Because look, 42.5 to 92.6, and you have the deficit there. This is one of our core problems, and that's why oftentimes we have the situation we end up in, because we can't even meet our budgets, even in terms of deficits. But then you look at the overall budget deficit as well, and per the primary balance, that's in the negative, 45.8 billion. The IMF target was 5 billion. You see how far we have gone from righteousness, how far we have fallen from fiscal righteousness, if you like. That's the tail of the tape. And that explains, as you walk along with me, why we are where we are. But going to the next slide. Then you would look at, in terms of dealing with the economy, because it's always interesting, politics and how we handle it, but what's in a name, right? You look at those that have been cancelled per the budget, one district, one factory. Now we are looking at a national apprenticeship program. You Start, now we have a Jumara program. Ghana Cares, now we are talking about a Feed Ghana program. And Go for Oil, but now we have a gold board. The question, are these going to change anything from these? One district, one factory. Some would speak in some sectors about how much work it did, but generally, did it yield the results that we, you and I, would have wanted it to yield? So is it just a change in name, or is it more effectiveness, more efficiency, better for the ordinary Ghanaian? Now, if you go to the next slide, then we take a look at the Bank of Ghana, because in looking at our economy and how far we've fallen into debt and everything in between, you cannot take out the Bank of Ghana, which is now asking for a bailout of 53 billion Ghana cedis. But look at, there's an interesting trajectory, right? From 2008 to 2016, you notice a certain trend of staying in the black, making profits, if you like. 342 million, 295, and it goes on and on. 1.5 billion around 2012, 2013, which was a pretty tidy sum. Then 2016, 1 billion. In fact, this is 2015. 2016, 709 million. Then in 2017, we take a dip of 1.6 billion. We claw up a bit, go to 793 million, and then we stay in the black, 1.8 billion, 1.6 billion, 1.2 billion up to 2021. And then you have the pitfalls showing after COVID-19, after massive lending by government, went into the red by 60.8 billion Ghana cedis. And then the latest figure, 10.5 billion in 2023. Next slide. Which then brings us to the equity position, right, of the central bank. 2019, 1.6 billion, 2020, 3.7 billion, 2021, 5.1 billion, and then in 2022, in the negative, 55 billion in the negative, 2023, 66 billion in the negative. Part of why the central bank is where it is. Now, they're calling, like I said, for a 53 billion Ghana cedi bailout. But will their call be heard? And what is the quid pro quo? What will have to go for them to benefit? The finance minister has been speaking. He's spoken about alternative recapitalization options. And some of what he's proposing: lease the new headquarters. We paid, what, $250+ million for that? He says, lease it. If you're not going to use all of it, lease it. Cut expenditure and reduce your events Events at which, you remember back then we heard that, oh, board members of the central bank were doing this and that. These were the perks board. Can we cut some of those down? Those are options. And then sell some assets as ways of reducing cost, clawing back some money, and taking care of your equity problems. Next slide. But then I also want to talk about, of course, we're staying on the budget, right? The talk about the betting tax and everything in between. Former Finance Minister Dr. Amin Adam said, quote, betting tax that they said they have abolished, we never collected betting tax. So to come and tell Ghanaians that you have abolished something that you have not implemented is to deceive the people of Ghana. Who is being deceptive? Let's go to the next slide. Shall we do the next slide? And if you go to the next slide, you would actually find out some of the dynamics when it comes to the MPP's manifesto, because then in that manifesto, what was said was that the MPP government will implement wide-ranging tax reforms and abolish the betting tax. So the question is, if there were no betting tax, what was Dr. Bawumia, had he become president, what was he going to abolish? You read between the lines. But if you then look at a breakdown of revenue raked in from withholding tax on winnings, on the betting tax, this is what we were given. 2023, 51.3 million Ghana cedis. And in 2024, 147.76 million Ghana cedis. And these are in the record books. They can be checked. Next slide. If you look at pay as you earn, 15.86 million, it goes on and on. Withholding, there's a missing H here. Our apologies for that. Withholding tax, 46.13 million. Corporate income tax. And then pay attention to the red, section. Withholding tax on winnings, 147.76 million Ghana cedis. And it goes on and on. How did all of this apply? Next slide. So if you look at that component I was highlighting, the total revenue raked in from withholding tax on winnings was 199.06 million Ghana cedis. If you go to the next slide. Shall we go to the next slide? Then you would have Atoforsen and Setekwe speak on the betting tax situation, what they came and met from the books. I don't think Amin is on top of that matter because my checks revealed that the betting tax was implemented in the second half of 2024. The government of Ghana has collected over 80 million Ghana cedis from betting tax, so I don't know what he's talking about. But what does former finance minister and now presidential advisor on the economy, Setekwe, say? Let's go to that slide. He says the minority should go to the Commissioner General, and this is instructive because it's the GRA we are talking about. The Commissioner General, because they passed the law on betting tax, referencing them to the Ghana Revenue Authority, which in itself had claimed that there had been some returns back in 2024. And then, where I want to wrap the conversation, we've all been talking about state-owned enterprises and how some of them are failing. Not all. No one said all of them were failing. But we need all of them to be in the black, to be above board, so that we can make profits. Because if you're not making any returns, what are you there for? Let's face it. So the president says, loss-making SOEs will no longer be tolerated. They will be swiftly reformed, merged, privatized, or shut down. Pay attention to those words. Reformed, merged, privatized, or shut down. We may not be so clear what reformed may mean. Merged, we may have an idea. Privatized, we may have an idea. And of course, shut down, we all understand what that means. But next slide. Again, your performance, he has directed this to some youth who are members of his administration, but also the SOEs. Your performance will determine whether you continue in your roles when we review progress in 2026. I like this word review because every year you have to look at the output, and if it's simply not working, you must go. The Ghanaian people deserve better and will not accept mediocrity. If you are not prepared to be part of the reset, now is the time to walk out. It's tough talk, and I think it's high time the SOEs lift up to such expectations. It is what it is. Now, some of the industries that could be on the chopping board in a way, I'm not saying they are going or anything, but my final two slides, you have ECG there with its debt stock that we're all aware of. There's Gridco VRA Tema Shipyard. Interesting, right? We had the Black Star Line and everything just went bonkers. Now it's more foreign control than anything, over 95%. Tema Shipyard, Ghana Railway Limited, and then the final batch, of 5 that we have there as well. Next slide. The Ghana Cylinder Manufacturing Limited, Gihog Distilleries, Precious Minerals Marketing Company, that's the PMMC, the Accra Digital Center, and Airtel Tigo, Ghana. As we talk about our budget and the way forward for our companies and all of that, we must pay attention to all of these because some of them are simply siphoning. They are like leeches, draining our financial blood and not giving us anything in return. So the question then is, what do we do with them? Merge, privatize, shut down, review, reform. What do you think? Anyway, these are my blunt thoughts that I have shared with you. Always, I share them and leave you to decide what to think. I've said them raw, hot, unedited, undiluted. May God bless Ghana, as we always pray, and make her great and strong. Thanks for watching.